Hi folks, this is Klaus at Top Hydraulics. We have just made a video on removing and replacing all convertible top hydraulic components on a CLK convertible top, and figured we may as well at the same time show you where the microswitches are located in this top and help you a little bit with troubleshooting. Obviously you can use a computer to read fault codes on the car, but sometimes it's actually better to go by symptoms, and we'll try to show you some of that. Now, what are the most common problems with electrical problems with the top? Number one is you try to open or close the top and you get the signal close compartment cover, and we'll show you in a moment how to deal with that. Another common one is nothing working, the pump not working. That could be a blown fuse on the pump, which actually means a bad pump motor, or it could be a dislodged microswitch in the storage compartment. We'll just walk you through all of this symptom by symptom. The most common electrical problem in the 209 chassis CLK soft top is you want to open or close the top, and in the dashboard you get the signal please close trunk partition, or ski bag limit switch, people call this sometimes. The limit switch for the trunk partition is inside the trunk, and obviously it gets activated when the partition is closed, and this is also called limit switch S849. The switch itself rarely ever breaks. What happens is the struts in this compartment wear out. There are some gas-loaded struts pushing the compartment cover against these switches, and as these struts wear out, you see these ones are not quite pushing against the limit switch anymore. You think the cover is closed, but there's not enough pressure from these struts to activate the switch anymore. Now, it's not a good idea to permanently bypass this switch, because what if you have something in the trunk and you open your top, you may have a collision. So instead I'll show you access to these struts when the compartment cover is open. It's a little bit easier to see at that point. If you see a soft top in this particular position, then you have either manually closed it too far, meaning you have closed the compartment cover too far, or the pump has closed it too far. If the pump has closed the compartment cover to this position while the rear window is still up, then you have a bad limit switch S8422, and that is part number 209-820-1910. That switch must be damaged because it did not make this cover stop about an inch before the final position to allow this rear window. So let me demonstrate how this happens. We'll open this cover again and show you what is happening with the switch that allowed the malfunction in the first place. Come on over. So here's the culprit switch S8411 in the forward left corner of the storage compartment, and the switch is fastened with torx T20 screw on the opposite side. Actually the holder has broken for it, and it got derailed on us, meaning when somebody previously manually closed this top, the tonneau cover was slightly out of alignment and hit the switch assembly and got it out of kilter. This particular one actually only has a plastic piece broken off of it, and it could be zip tied back into place, but obviously if you want to do the job right, you buy a new switch that is not terribly expensive. Again, part number 209-820-1910. And again, this switch gets triggered as the storage compartment cover is down far enough to receive the rear window glass. Here's soft top compartment cover switch closed, limit switch S8522. That's on the right side inside the storage compartment. It simply gets triggered when the compartment has been fully closed. So if this switch got derailed, broken somehow, your pump would keep running trying to close the compartment cover some more while it actually is already fully closed. If your tonneau cover opens and then the pump keeps running but nothing else moves, then likely the switch assembly on the left tonneau cylinder isn't giving the signal that the cylinder is extended completely. You see the cylinder here, and I'm holding a copy in front of me. This switch assembly, part number 209-820-1810, clips onto the cylinder, and it has a rider that goes in and out as the shaft retracts and extends. I will unclip this rider here for demonstration, and basically the thing keeps going up and down, and the signal we might be missing is when the shaft is fully extended, that the signal doesn't get into the computer. The wiring harness plugs in here. In most cases, simply the rider hasn't been fastened properly in this groove and it stayed down, but sometimes these switch assemblies will also fail because they're just a plastic assembly that can have dirt inside and thus somehow block the actual microswitch inside. The rear bow or rear window glass section, as it enters the tonneau cover, will trigger switch S8419, the bow lock limit switch. If during closing of the soft top the last step was that the rear bow went into the storage compartment, then the pump kept running but nothing moved anymore, that would indicate that the computer is not getting the signal that the rear bow is inside this storage compartment. And I'll show you inside the storage cover. And I will open this cover again and show you the switch assembly. There's some adjustment to it, and show you the rear bow lock limit switch. Here is the bow lock limit switch, which is again the switch that gets triggered when the rear glass has entered the tonneau or stowage cover, and the roller from that rear glass in here will be triggering the switch assembly. You can clearly hear it clicking when it works. First you want to check whether the alignment is okay of the assembly receiving the rear bow. If somebody has messed with it before, then you may have to undo the damage that they have done. Or if everything seems to be well aligned and you can still hear the switch clicking, then you want to make sure you have continuity in the wire. The wiring harness gets routed around this hinge. Here is where it flexes, so here is the most likely place where the wires may be bad. The bow limit switch S8415 here signals when the rear bow or rear glass is up all the way. Hopefully you can hear the click in this video. So if the top stops just after the rear bow rear glass has lifted and then nothing else moves, likely this limit switch is not giving the signal that the rear glass is up. A fairly rare switch to fail. It is pretty well protected in here. Here's the lock limit switch S8411 in your CLK, pretty much above the steering wheel, under the windshield header. And the way it functions is easily demonstrated. We will manually unlock and lock again here. As the locking claw comes in, it pushes this plastic lever. The lever then releases from the microswitch S8411, and when it's fully latched, there's supposed to be a gap of 1 millimeter. The only time this gap isn't there properly normally is when the locking mechanism has been removed, and we'll show you previously and installed not in the exact proper location. We'll show you next how to adjust it to the right place. But one more comment, you can hear this switch clicking, hopefully even in the video, and you probably should be able to hear this even when the header panel is installed. If you cannot hear a faint click while manually locking, once you have turned your Allen bolt about 15 degrees, then likely you found the culprit and need to adjust the latch. Here is switch S8418. That is actually one that rarely ever fails or needs help. This is the limit switch in catch position, so called. It is on most CLKs on the passenger side, and it simply gets triggered by the soft top arriving in the front, and as soon as the claw from the locking mechanism even touches the windshield header here, this switch gets triggered and tells the computer get ready to pressurize the front lock cylinder so that the front can lock. And then the next thing would be that front locks and triggers S8411, giving you the locked position. To measure the alignment of the front latch claws, and which might be different from left to right because possibly the front locking mechanism wasn't installed exactly in the right place, you want to lower the top, keep the storage cover open, pull the key, and the system will soon relieve pressure by itself. Then you can put your Allen wrench into the front lock, turn it counterclockwise until both of these locking claws have pulled all the way. Now you measure outside to outside the distance from the end of the locking claw to the outside of the pin, and this should, per Mercedes spec, be 85 to 86 millimeters. Better to measure it in millimeters, but you could also just compare both latches. 85.5 millimeters turns out to be pretty much exactly 3 7/16 of an inch. So again, Mercedes spec 85 to 86 millimeter, and normally if these are both the same, then you're in good shape already anyway, and this should trigger the front properly. If you have to adjust, don't move these latches, but instead move the middle locking mechanism with the cylinder in it. After you remove this plastic panel, you loosen the 4 torque screws that hold the locking mechanism in place, and you shift the locking mechanism to the left or to the right until you have your 85 to 86 millimeters distance over here. And with that, you should have the fault remedied.